Hello, and welcome to the Froggy Five podcast. I'm your host, Jim Freilich, founder and managing partner at Froggy Companies. And here on the Froggy Five, I have a special guest of honor today, Ian Hogan. Ian is a guy I used to work with as an engineer on an Air Force base, so we have a little history, but I'm seeing Ian for the first time in probably 5 years, so excited to talk to him. I'm going to capture some of that reunion with the audience here, but for those who don't know Ian, he is an engineer, he's an investor, and he's an agent. And he's a guy with a very data-centric mindset who seamlessly integrates his skills across those roles. So in his capacity as an investor, Ian operates with a by-the-numbers approach, and he fearlessly tackles value-add projects, and he likes hands-on endeavors. He owns 6 units in central Massachusetts, where he resides out there in Massachusetts, but he also house hacks, and he's got his own duplex where he's still house hacking. As an agent, which I didn't know Ian was an agent. Last time I knew him, he wasn't an agent, but he directs his focus towards assisting clients in navigating numerical landscape. So you keep coming back to numerical. I know Ian from working with him, he's a very, very analytical guy. Oh, did I say that wrong? Analytical. He's an analytical guy. Welcome here today.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. And it's great to see you again after all these years of you leaving me.
Yeah. It's been a minute, right? I think I'd have to. Let's keep this unclassified, by the way, just so you know. I don't have any of those clearances anymore, so I don't know what you've been working on. I don't want to know unless my real estate stuff's not working out, and then I'll be shipping you a resume to come back to the basis. So,
I always got a job if you're looking.
So after that intro in, I want to talk about how you came. I know some of this already, but I want you to tell our audience how you came to be involved in real estate and what was your path to now doing it, alongside your full-time job.
Sure. Yeah. It's been a long time coming, or at least it feels that way. I was, working for the government, don't make too much money, or at least not the good people in the government. And I had a lot of student loan debt, still do to some degree, which we've talked about a little bit. And I was looking at ways. I didn't want to be working in the government or working in a job that I didn't necessarily want to do for forever. And a common thing with the government is you have like these really generally old like guys that are just working in the government, and you don't know why they're still working, and you don't know how much like work they're outputting. And I didn't want to end up being like that. I wanted to have more control over my life. So trying to figure out how to augment the money that I was getting from my normal like 9-to-5 job. And I was originally looking at stocks. Stocks are a bit to leverage money and make it work. I was like looking into day trading, and I was dreaming too much of candlestick charts, and I was getting too much anxiety from that personally. I eventually heard about real estate through some podcasts, started looking into it, started going to events, getting really into like the benefits of real estate. There's tax approaches, using leverage with physical assets is great. And basically that's why I ended up getting into real estate. And luckily at the same time, I was getting into all of that and starting to go to local meetups. I would always talk about it in the office with you and a couple of the other guys that were doing real estate in our office. And to be honest, I couldn't get enough of talking about it with you guys. When you ended up pivoting and doing your new job and leaving us, I was pretty sad with that because I didn't have anyone else to really talk to. I had some naysayers in there that said some like ridiculous things that inherited real estate. And, I pushed past all that negativity and ended up looking into and setting myself up to buy my first property in like 2020 is kind of when it all started going.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to see that. They were like, Freilich, he'll be back. He always comes back to the Air Force. You never know. Never say never, but
they thought I've had people come back after a long time, but you seem to be having fun on what you're doing.
It's a comfortable zone. Technology is one of your areas. So I want to hear about your approach with technology, what you're excited about, what you've developed, and then anywhere you want to take technology. Because see, I put out slices on days, and I have a Technology Tuesday. So again, in your sweet spot. My last guest was an engineer. A few guests before that, I had the guy who owns Lofty.ai, super smart guy. So let's geek it up for a minute and tell me what you've built, and if you just use it for yourself, how I can use it, or what's your game plan with your technology.
Yeah, so I kind of like going back on what I do for a 9 to 5. It's for those that are unaware, I don't like do hands-on engineering. It's mostly documentation, managing people, and the higher up you get, the more management of people and less hands-on even the minimal stuff is. So I came to terms with that after some years working for the Air Force, and but to get around that, I have to do hands-on stuff at home. And with my background being in electrical and computer engineering, I was doing some electrical stuff, but that gets expensive with buying hardware and equipment like that. And software is a lot cheaper. Essentially, there's no cost unless you're hosting stuff in a cloud, which is minimal for me. I'm not doing anything crazy. But even before I was a real estate agent, when I was looking at properties, and my agent would be sending me stuff, I would be basically looking at all of these properties and running numbers in the calculators, just checking them out. At the time, I was less familiar with all of it, so I was putting the reps in and calculating: is this going to be a good deal? Should I spend my time taking a look at it? Because you can have 20 properties come to market a day, or cause you to spend a lot of time looking into those things. And I thought that was a waste of time. There should be some sort of quick indicator to tell me, hey, should I even spend my time looking at this property even further? Should I go to the open house? Should I request all this? And this is just an approach as an investor and someone that's like spinning up. So what I ended up doing was I basically automated. I really got into web scraping and automating bots. And I basically automated a bot to log into what you receive from like a real estate agent. You usually get like this standardized list of each of these properties, and there will be some information there, like how many bedrooms and the price and stuff like that. It's not a perfect system, but it was just meant for me to have a quick look number of, should I even look at this? And it did some calculations with how many bedrooms there were, the location, and projected rents. And for that, I was using like fair market rents off of HUD, which as an agent and as an investor, I recommend to folks. It's a good, stable, conservative number to go with. And I basically just had this web bot log into the IDX from the MLS for me. And it just ran these calculations, and it would save a file for me, and it would basically give me a number, basically kind of like a percentage. And the higher it was, the more likely I should take a look at it.
The better, yeah. Good.
So that was pretty cool. What it ended up doing is it saved time for me. It also identified like things that looked really good and had a high number. They were priced that way for a certain reason, and usually, like it doesn't mean it's a great deal. You have to still look at like the issues with the property. And at the time I was looking at Worcester, and there's a lot of, this is before Worcester really blew up since 2020, it became one of the hottest markets in the country. But a lot of these properties are disheveled, need a lot of help. And that kind of identifies that. But that was my first step into like creating web bots and web scraping. Eventually, I ended up buying the property, and I liked it enough and started going to these hangouts to where I was. I wanted to be a real estate agent. I wanted to do similar stuff that my agent was doing, mostly just working with investors. And that he gave me access to his MLS before I was an agent. And based off of the amount of data there, I was like, eyes wide open of like the possibilities of what I could do with that data and web scraping. And that's kind of like how it started with kind of like what I do today, which is a lot more intense than that singular number that I was doing when I started.
I'm sure you did. So what has been the evolution, and do you have any plans to monetize? I mean, so much has happened with AI, right? And a lot of AI, we could have a whole other segment on what AI is or isn't, what automated decision making is or isn't. You and I both have careers related to doing a lot of more interesting things with AI and machine learning. But what's your personal evolution or viewpoint? Are like you trying to stay with the pulse? You already have to in your day job stay with the pulse of certain things, but like with in the real estate world, are you like trying to stay up on all these like the latest AI types of things? Are you evolving your own software for your own purposes only, or uh, for people that are your clients? Or is there
Sure.
stuff like other guys can guys like me come into Central New Hampshire and now use this, or we got to pay some premium for Ian's super secret
My
database?
super secret sauce. Uh,
What
yeah,
are
so
what's your thoughts on that?
it's all everything that I do. I did look at monetizing it. So essentially, what my code transformed into is it logs into, since I'm an agent, I have access to the MLS. When I say the MLS, a lot of people don't know that there's multiple. There's a lot of MLSs. Massachusetts is a nice smaller state, so generally there's one main MLS. There are a few in the state. Cape Cod has kind of its own, but you'll
Mm-hmm.
still see stuff from Cape Cod on the normal MLS. Um, that kind of spells the issue for trying to scale this thing is I would need agreed accesses to the MLSs across like all of the states to be able to do this at scale. So from that decision, I just remained focused and started just leveraging it as a real estate agent in kind of like my niche of knowledge. And I'm not one to gatekeep. I scrape all this data. I do it monthly, and I pull every single update for every town in Massachusetts. It's like 300 something towns. If you're trying to do this in as like a person or like an army of people, I calculated it out, and it would take like weeks straight of just like moving numbers and whatnot, just for what I do in like an hour or so. Um, and basically, it logs in as me, and it pulls up these reports. The reason why I thought this was important was because the MLS does, in my opinion, an awful job at showing data and trends and whatnot. It shows
Mm-hmm.
it in a very, very poor fashion. It's hard to even see trends. You kind of just see data points. Other ones are even worse. I've seen the New Hampshire MLS, and the data doesn't even exist. So Massachusetts is at least better than that in that sense.
Yeah, we
Um,
don't want you to know up here. We don't want you Massachusetts people up here. Oh, we do. I'm sorry. I sold a lot of lots to people from
I'm not
Massachusetts.
licensed there
We're trying to
yet.
keep it. Yeah, we're trying to keep it. Well, don't you have a reciprocal license in New Hampshire? If you can, right? No.
No, it's close. You still have to do some work, but now
Yeah.
since I'm down in Worcester, there's not. I don't have much incentive to go up to New Hampshire. In terms of like clientele that I focus on, I go as far as Springfield and one way, and
Yeah.
then as far as New Bedford the other way, and then up to Fitchburg, down to like pretty much Worcester and south
Okay.
of Worcester.
If we're looking
So
Central Mass, but
I
people,
cover a
so
lot.
small multifamily. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. The small multifamily too, single family and small multifamily. Is that your main focus? Residential, 4 units and under, or do you delve into commercial and mixed use properties with your analysis? Because I know that gets you in a different co-star area type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is I caveat this when I present the data. The data's all I share it, not in the raw form, but I format and make plots and charts out of it, and I share all that, and that's on my website, and I present that at speaking events and meetups with folks. And I
Mhm.
give the caveat that this is the MLS. It obviously does not have off market information on here, because to do that, like some of the larger groups, it's an army of people calling people and trying to get information.
Yeah.
The MLS is mostly for multifamily. It's mostly 2 to 4. It will go up higher than that, but most of that other stuff is on like LoopNet and CoStar and stuff like that. So the caveat is this is for like the smaller multifamilies. Two 6 units is I think the average. You'll see the higher up, but for most investors that are reaching out to me, a lot of them are looking for those smaller properties, like 2 to 4 units. In terms of cash flowing, 3 units is a hot spot. Worcester has some of the most triple deckers in the state.
Yeah.
So it's a great spot to be in. The rest are like heavily duplexes in terms of that. So while it doesn't cover everything, it covers enough to get an idea of where the market is, how inventory is going, and kind of where prices are headed. So it's enough to, even if you're to look at the larger buildings and you're in a different like realm of working, the data is still overall good for trends. And trends is really what all this data is, and trying to calculate those things.
Okay. Well, thanks for explaining that. So I think, are you naturally getting more? So if I'm thinking, if I want to invest something in central Massachusetts, Ian's my guy to call now. Like, are you mostly dealing with people that want to invest, or are you also just doing, residential people looking for?
Yeah, I almost do no residential.
What's that?
And I did that on purpose. It's the group that I joined, who are my agents, when I started, they focus almost solely on investors. The only times I've looked at single families is for like if my investor clients were looking for like a house, I will help them out. If I have friends looking for a single family house or family, I will help them out. But predominantly, I mostly want to deal with people that are thinking of the numbers. They don't, for the most part, they don't care about like specific, like I don't like this paint color, I don't like this siding color, things like that. The kitchen, no, I didn't want to openly deal with that. I rather deal with the numbers, and working almost solely with investors and being a staple for that is what I wanted to focus on and what I've been able to do for the last like 4 years or so. So
That's
I've
awesome.
been happy with that.
That's great. That's there's a reason, my son Jake, who works with me now full time, although he's out swinging a hammer today because he's doing stuff on site 2 times a week now. I think he hated that. He just couldn't. He's like, yeah, we're in the kitchen. Okay, it's a countertop. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, the president is like, I'm not spending my life like this. Just couldn't. He's certain people are built that's their thing. They want to get into it. They want to. Yeah, you're not that guy. I can tell that too. So I get it. It's like, yep. Okay, talk to me about like the mechanical systems that aren't working here, or something infrastructure wise that needs to be dealt with. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the numbers, but I want to talk about your interior design. I want to talk about the flooring. So yeah, I can see that about you.
As an agent, or not as an agent, as an investor, you can change all those things. You can change. So like if I have new, and you see this often with like new clients that are new to investing, and they're worried about, I don't know, like something with the wall in Massachusetts and likely the Northeast and New England in general, you have like, these are really old buildings. A lot of them are built with like horsehair plaster. So you get like cracking, peeling of walls. You have nice hardwood floors that can get buffed out. And oftentimes underneath carpet, you have these great floors. And it's just trying to talk to clients on like, the big money things is if the foundation is going to break, that's probably tens of thousands of dollars, and you want to keep an eye on that. But like this flooring being messed up, you're talking about at max like a few $1,000s worth of vinyl plank or redoing the hardwood floor, these are all easy things. Fixing a wall is very easy.
Yeah,
I do all these things myself, mostly because I didn't have money at the time, and I like being hands-on. So I've repaired a lot of these things, and it's not difficult in trying to convince new investors that is like a good stepping point.
Yeah,
and they don't have to go do it; they can just pay people to do it.
Did you? And if I recall, your dad taught you how to fix things with your hands, right?
My dad is a very high-end cabinet maker and carpenter, and he's very particular, so I get that from him. To be honest, learning from someone that is such an expert at what they do is not always the most fun, especially your dad. So honestly, a lot of what I've learned is from YouTube, and YouTube University is amazing. And then for like, I framed out parts of my building and whatnot for the interior, and I will send my dad my 3D model designs of the framing and everything, and be like, hey, is this check out? And he'll take a look at it, make some notes of like improvement. You might want to change this, or this is good. I'll do that with my dad, and that's a lot easier.
Yeah, you don't want to come in. Okay, Dad, we're not building an expert cabinet. That's what you have. Go to Beacon Street for that. I'm out here in Worcester. I'm trying to build this. Like, I want to run up the price with this expert cabinet. That's good though. Yeah. That's a great, great person to have in your life and in your family, and having that your father's a resource. Not that your father should be a resource, but fathers like to be resources, so it's a good resource to have. I think. Now on the expense side, before we get off the technology subject, I'm curious whether you have, do you have any similar databases that you're using as you do more and you deal with more people? Simplistically, what we deal with all the time, just contractors. Which contractors can you rely on to show up and do a good job and come in on time, within budget? Everything, your day job's supposed to be on time, within budget, within specs, right?
Yeah.
Do you have anything like that, or are you just developing relationships with people when you're not doing it yourself?
Yeah, for all this, and likely being an engineer, engineers tend to overcomplicate things. And I definitely did that with my spreadsheets and whatnot. Like I'll run this code and I'll create calculators to project things out. BiggerPockets has some great ones. I developed my own. Basically what I learned is I need to focus away from overcomplicating simple things. To be honest, real estate should be relatively simple. And that being said, with contractors and whatnot, it's growing a team of people that you trust. That's why meetups are good. That's why talking to other investors is good. And basically what I do is I either have my own contractors that I have worked with and I trust, or basically people that I highly trust. They create like a consolidated Rolodex of good contractors. And basically I use what they have, I share with them who I have, and I share that with clients, and that's like an open resource. And actually, and as an agent, it's a great thing to have a Rolodex of stuff, because all your clients are asked these questions. I get asked this question the most out of being an agent. It's like, do you have a guy that can do this? So just keep it simple, and it's a Google Sheets or an Excel sheet.
And you've broken the code. And I'm proud of you, because it's like, my wife would probably say, you hit your 50s, Jim, and you would just keep on overcomplicating it. So it's a running joke. Any family that has engineers, it will be a joke. Engineers will overcomplicate things, no matter what. It's the simplest task. Everything's got to be laid out. It could be furniture from IKEA. It's got to be laid out. It's got to be a plan formulated. And but to hear the word Rolodex from a relatively young guy in the year 2024 in the technology portion of the pie, I love it, because the Rolodex, I can handle the Rolodex. I love it. The having contracts you can rely upon, making that shift from the engineering world, and as you said, now I worked for you at some point, so I was in my fake engineering role, but even then I was doing more engineering than you. But the guys outside are doing more engineering, who were overseeing. So I like to say I spent many years being a fake engineer, trying to do engineering. It's like I'm overseeing engineers with my fake engineering. But all that said, I think I was horrified to get involved in real estate development at a very big level, ground up development, which I've now done a decent amount of, to see how it runs out here in different environments, different states, I'm like, this world is ripe for some engineering, right? Now I know the really expensive high firms that are doing like high rises and big projects operate, pretty systematically. I got a dose of that when they were building buildings in downtown Atlanta for the Olympics my last year in college. in 1993, and I had the privilege of going being part of a site where they had this, they're working night and day with cranes and lights. So that I pictured real estate development like that. Like, okay, it's like we do it. And I come out here and guys would be like, they don't got spreadsheets. They don't like, yeah, you're going to call Bob. I'm like, well, no, who shows up before that? Like, you don't have this on a schedule? Like, what are you talking? No, the water guys will come in. It's all relaxed. If one guy goes off course, the concrete doesn't get laid. There's a week delay. It's a very nerve-wracking environment that I feel like can be improved upon, but also it doesn't need to be overcomplicated, to your point. I just had to share that with you.
Yeah, I think, and what I've seen with my stuff, I haven't done any development, but my first property, I ended up buying with a 203K reno loan, partially because I had no money at the time. I needed to figure out how to do value add to get things rolling. What I ended up doing was buying a property that needed an insane amount of work. I've had complications with contractors, my GC. When you do a 203K loan, you're really tied to the GC and it's costly to change them. So I haven't. The long story short with that one is the property is like everything has been redone, but it's taken, I think it was originally supposed to estimate for like 6 months. It's going to be finished in the next couple of weeks or so. So it's been like 4 years almost.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's just like complications with the town, the inspectors, the GC has its own like medical and just organization stuff. And what this really all comes down to is it's project management and critical thinking. And if you write down the plan of like, hey, these people need to come out for this, timeline of all of this and organize it like that, like I think you can do technology and CRMs and things to assist that. But at the end of the day, it's just good project management, which is more or less what our fake engineering was and is.
Yeah, exactly. You have to, I've been guilty of writing too long of emails for sure in different environments, too many, too long on emails. But I think over communication on the actual management side, not just the BS side, is like, I think it should still be done. I believe in over communicating. We've just had some walls poured that are 8 inches short. Walls got to be broken down for a new wall to be formed because it was done without foundation plans. Instead, it was done on septic design. And I don't know how that happens, but it's like over communicate, like this one little thing can slip by between two contractors or two subs. So yeah. I think that the life of a general contractor is project management, but it's but with subcontractors and everything, I can see how it gets complicated. And when one thing, when there are all these dependencies built up on a critical path, and one guy is out of the picture, doesn't show up, and you don't have another contingency plan, right? You don't have armies of people, then it's a challenge. And I've actually thought of this recently. I mean, you might not know, we've started the Froggy X Factor with our 3 little companies, and it's based around doing fractional services for people. And one of the things I'm pitching to people is like, if I'm coming in to help your team on this, like view me like a prime contractor or a GC, if you will, on this team, if you don't already have that in place for something, because there's a lot of external services that you need depending on what you're trying to achieve as a developer or investment group. There's internal manning, and there's all these decision points about what to use, what to use for people, what to use for systems. And people think in different categories across the board that they can save money by going to the subs themselves, right? And people in the Air Force think that themselves. They're like, blue suiters are going to do this. We're going to save money here and there. No, you won't. You won't really in the end, because it'll take longer. It's probably not going to work, and you're not going to have the ability to point to a single source and say, okay, I'm paying you X amount to get X done. You're responsible for all this under the umbrella, whether it's a prime contractor or a general contractor. I can't emphasize enough how much I've learned that you won't save money, because part of it is too, even with big companies, right? We've known this with Northrop Grumman. So as much as people hate the big guys sometimes because they're paying so much more through the nose for something, inevitably, if it's a big, complicated project, they have more resources to grab other engineers, or in the world of general contractors, I got 2 or 3 plumbers, right? If Bob's not showing up, I'm calling Larry, because, where with yourself, you might have that one line of A, B, C, D, and it seems like I'm going to save like 50%, but it took longer, it cost more, and something got screwed up. So that's my spiel. I get off my soapbox on that, but I don't know if you've learned that. But I think so. Your warning. I want to come back to you, because this podcast is about you, Ian, and I want to come back to the you dipped in a little bit. You don't have to name names and everything, but for my warning Wednesday, you've got some lessons in here, and I want to dig just a little further about something you've learned in there that you're like, okay, maybe it's the 203 contract you don't want to use, because I've used one of them before and it was double the price and everything else. Tell something that you've learned from that, a little deeper, of like, it went like this and I'm never going to do X again.
Yeah. My story for this is like known a lot between friends and agents on the team. And which is also funny, because our super team lead, he's the one that recommended the GC, and I have no issue with the GC. I won't use him again for these large projects. But I'm amenable with people, and I just want things to get done. And the big thing is, like, when you do a 2 or 3K, you have to get bids for it, and ultimately things have to. They appraise it as if it's already done, and you have to be within like 110% of that appraisal. Mm-hmm. So to some degree, it's generous. But the first contractor, who I think would have been really good and gotten it done quickly, he was upfronting all of his risk. He was a bigger group, but their bid was like $230,000, and at the time that would have not have appraised it at all. It was pretty far off, and I almost was like, I was scoping back the project just to be able to close, because I didn't want to give up on the deal. The closing period for this thing took months, and I ended up going with this general contractor, and I was given the knowledge, the heads up front of like, hey, this is a GC that we've used, but there's some issues that you'll get into. So I ended up knowing that he would be very cheap, but it would be to some degree a pain. And he was cheap. It was about $100K lower. We ended up to get the deal closed. So it was a necessity of doing the deal. I would not change that decision to this day. But you have to know what you're getting in bed with. And then what I wish I actually did sooner is basically the project was, a lot of the scope was converting this small 1-bedroom, kind of like a studio apartment on my first floor, and taking 1,000 square feet of my commercial unit right next to it, taking that over and making a 3-bed, 2-bath, and minimizing my commercial floor unit. Okay. As well as like other things like replacing the roof and some electrical, and so it's a big gut project, and I learned a lot from it. I like to go big or go home, so I learned a lot of things from it. It did slow me down, so I give this caveat to all my clients, is if you're trying to scale up quickly, there's certain things that you want to stay away from. And a lot of that is electrical, specifically in Worcester, because it's difficult. So that's like one thing to watch out for if you're trying to scale quickly, avoiding like large projects that can set you behind. I still wouldn't change it to this day. And then the other thing that I wish I did a lot sooner is on the 203K, you have to get everything inspected. It has to be a general contractor doing it. All of that. So there's some controls in there. I can't be my own GC, but I just recently started going around my GC, because he's having his own issues. I want this project done. He wants this project done. I started hiring my own contractors and like managing them myself to close out certain things. I had an electrician come in, pull permits to do the stuff. And then I eventually forced my GC to use my electrician that I trusted, because the electrician is going to answer to me and the previous like 3 or 4 electricians on this project that do some work and then leave.
Wow.
I did not trust any more of those. So the pitfall for this one is like, I should have just went around my GC sooner. Like, and I didn't hide any of this. I was open to him, and I want the project done. But I was doing the work myself, or I was having like a contractor come in and do it. Because at the end of the day, I want the project done, and it's costly to remove him, and there's paperwork. 203K is known for a lot of paperwork. But you got to do what you got to do, and sometimes that's getting your hands dirty on it.
Yeah, it sounds like it was messy. There's so many things in there. I won't go down to each one of them, but I've learned a few of them myself. I will say, I mean, yeah, move that building to New Hampshire, and you can be your own GC. Live free or die. If you want to move up north, you got a lot more options when you move. It can be just as frustrating for other reasons, but yeah, dealing with that, even that specific type of loan in New Hampshire has the same type of restrictions, but you do have your own special set of Massachusetts type of challenges around these towns. And then yeah, we had to build a lot of Jake has a log home and lives on the property next to us. Now we had to become our own GC on that by default when the guy wasn't showing up, and he was having some back problems or whatever, but behind schedule, over budget, and yada yada. And yeah, we learned how to build log homes. So sometimes, like you said, you gotta.
That's pretty.
It's exciting
cool
to
learn, though.
It's exciting, but it's not exciting when it's when snow's coming down. You don't have a roof up, and you gotta using flamethrowers to try to thaw out things so you can go and do stuff.
Damn.
Shoveling. Sometimes Jake took the whole day over there shoveling himself just so we could get to the next step. But it's all character building, right, Ian?
That's how I take it.
Yeah. So now tell me something you're excited about, either a deal that you've done, or if you haven't done something, like something on the horizon or something that you've seen from a deal perspective that you're like this is really cool, man. Some people can, you're hesitant to share it because somebody else might take your idea and run with it, or maybe it's a deal that you did and like you really like it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this first deal is like the interesting one, and I'm most excited to finish it. But the deal was interesting mostly because the property was so undesirable. It fell out of purchase and sale agreement, which is required in Massachusetts. It fell out of purchase and sale agreement like 2 or 3 times. And the issue was the building needed a lot of work. I had it inspected, and my inspector that I use to this day with all my clients in my own property, they remember this property is how wild it was. It has 1 commercial unit. It has 3 units. It had a lot of commercial space, which was weird. It has a flat roof. It has a normal roof, like a triple decker. It's an amalgamation of things. It has a garage, but it just had so many things wrong with it. The listing agent was also the owner, and he was sketchy in terms of like his work. He would have people do like all of the wrong things to repair things. I inherited some tenants that told me a lot of this stuff. They've been there for like 10 years. They're good tenants. And they tell me a lot of what was done previously that I've fixed since then over the last 4 years. But ultimately, the deal is good. At the end of the day, I spent a lot more money on the property, and it's delayed 4 years. So I've had only 2 of the units rented, 2 units vacant. So but at the end of the day, it's like as if I was living there. It had been like a house hack. I fixed up the garage and rented that out. So I got some money from that. At the end of the day, it hasn't killed me. That being said, if I wasn't working my 9 to 5, it probably would have killed me. I've learned a lot. I've replaced every single system, and it's like a deep dive into knowledge and learning all of that. So I get the benefit of that. And at the end of the day, when this project is done, I ran the numbers as if the commercial unit would never rent, because I don't do too many commercial units. It's now a 900 square foot like open. I've remodeled that one myself. Open concept area, so it can be storage, it can be an office, it can be whatever. But at the end of the day, it's every unit is 3 bedrooms, um, and a three unit, 3 bed, 1 bath per each unit. Those buildings right now go for like in the 700s, and I've seen some in the to hit 800. And I bought my loan on this is like 500, like 10 now like maybe 470 or something. So at the end of the day, even with all that money add, there's a lot of value add in there, partially because Worcester was one of the hottest markets. But getting in early and being able to take that opportunity, like I had another cool thing with the financing is I leveraged. I didn't have money to do all of this. I leveraged my TSP, or my government equivalent of a 401k. I took a loan against it, and that's how I paid the down payment of this property.
Nice.
So I pretty much pulled out all the stops because I had no money. I was just paying off my student loans and really wanted to get started.
Yeah, because the 401k works like a TSP loan will be pretty low interest, and you just have to pay yourself back basically, right? Basically paying back into your fund.
Yeah, back in the day, I reached out to like one of the guys that you've interviewed before, and I created this talking about being an engineer and overcomplicating things. I created a very complex calculator to try to show whether it was good to pull from. I didn't pull from, so there's no negative, but do the loan. When you do a loan on your TSP, that money is no longer in the market, so you're not gaining those gains, and you're paying back interest. The interest is to yourself. And I ran a calculator, and it was like every scenario was like, yeah, use the money for this deal. Opportunity cost is everything, and it was definitely worth it. And the guy
I like that. I love it. I think I have a solo 401k that I started a few years back. So we've used the solo 401k for the LLC that has one, and it works similarly, right? You can use the money to invest, but you can take a loan out yourself. You have more flexibility because you can do alternative investing. You can use it to invest in real estate. It's just like a self-directed IRA, which I heavily recommend to anybody that wants to invest. But I think the one where, if you haven't heard about it, speaking of interviews I've done, Tom Rutkowski, financial planner, former Marine, the whole universal life type of policy, the thing that the rich people really use, being their own bank, that's the one where, you could basically, for lack of a better word, you can stuff money into your own life insurance policy. You make it your life insurance policy, and then you could take money back on it. I forget, maybe up to 85%. You could take that money back and utilize it for either no or very low interest rate. But that money is still being invested. So it's in two places at once. That same amount is still being invested, unlike your TSP. So if you haven't heard of that money, they're still investing the same equivalent, even though you've loaned against it. And that's how the rich people are their own banks. They just take loans from themselves. So if you haven't heard of that, look into that. Be your own bank. But I'm glad you use the TSP. That's creative. And so what you've told me here, and you just hit on financing. My next question was to be about creative financing, but you already answered it. So, but going back to this 6 unit, it's like your legacy. I think. Are you thinking about holding on to it, or are you thinking about selling it and levering it into other projects? Because you use that same project as your warning to other people about things you learn, but also your best deal because you've liked it so much. So Ian, as I was saying, your worst deal was also your best deal. So you've got this asset you're very proud of. It's your first 6 unit, and I'm wondering if you're planning on holding on to it, or you think you'll sell it, lever it into something else. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I'm basically my game plan, and to be honest, since this has been like a long strain on my mental capacity on some of these things, there are many nights where I'm like, I just want to sell this thing, but ultimately what I plan on doing is I bought it at a good time. I put a lot of sweat equity into it, and there's going to be a lot right when it's done. And I'm going to basically do I plan on doing a HELOC, and I plan on leveraging the equity that I built into this to jumpstart myself into one more house hack. I'm basically looking at doing one more house hack before my girlfriend is done with med school. I don't want to put her through doing a house hack. I'm fine doing it myself. I actually have, in between like this 4-unit that I bought a duplex, and I did house hack that one because this property was still, the 4-plex was still being worked on. My debt to income was pretty bad. So I was limited on that duplex. But basically I plan on leveraging and jumpstarting another multifamily house hack, basically live in that one for a year. And I also plan on to be able to scale up better. I'm not going to do as heavy as renovations. And I'm looking to doing like partnering on deals and stuff like that. I have my team lead on the Worcester team as an agent. He's mostly expanded around the same timeline as I have, but he's jump started it by teaming, and he expanded from, I think he like got 3 different build properties, like 9 units or something in his first year by selling a condo in Boston that he had. And since then he's dedicated a significant amount of time and thought power into this, and he's leveraged, and now him and his partners are up like 100 something units. By the end of this year, I wouldn't be surprised if they broke like 200 or hit 300 units. And I think it's all around once you get comfortable enough and get to partnering. So my goal is to basically leverage this property, keep it for the long term. The cash flow is great, and the equity is great, and basically leverage myself up is the name of the game. Are
you thinking about scaling up with the right partners if something comes about like that?
Yeah, one of the things that I need to focus on, and it's an issue because I like doing it. Like in my duplex, before I moved out of my unit, I gutted it and renoed it myself with a little help from my girlfriend and her brother. And, I need to take myself out of those scenarios. And I think with the right partners and the right deals, like I can take myself out of those things. I don't need to be as hands-on as I've been with these properties. And I think with that balance, it'll be a lot easier while maintaining my 9-to-5 job and not compromising that.
If people want to get in touch with you, Ian, because it has been great talking to you, but I'm going to let you go here. What's the best way for them to get involved, get in touch with you, either as an agent or want to get your newsletter?
Yeah, they can. I think the one-stop shop for all my contact stuff is my website, because it will prompt you to join the newsletter, and that's engineerrealestate.com. That basically gives there's a contact box which will lead to me. You can find all that, or you can go to like things like Bigger Pockets that everyone's on. I'm on there, just Ian Hogan. Anyway, or just reach out to you, and
Okay, or just contact Froggy Five. I'll be able to get in touch with Ian. I haven't been doing much on Bigger Pockets lately, but I had a little bit of a love-hate relationship on there because, I'll get into that some other time. But the engineerrealestate.com, great domain. Glad you grabbed it. Like we need to do a syndication. I was recently looking for that domain. I think it was taken. You had it. Been thinking about doing a syndication with all engineers. So we really which means we really won't do anything. We'll just like keep on analyzing. It's like, we're going to do this. We'll analyze it to death.
You got to take action.
We may or may not do it, but it's been great catching up with you, Ian. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon. Hey, thanks for having me on. If anybody else wants to find out more about what we're doing, please come to froggycompanies.com. Check out our 3 different business areas. It's great talking to you, and see you next time.